Hey, what's going on, PVA students? We're here for our next lesson in U.S. history. Today we're going to be covering lesson 9.4, the atomic bomb. Your quiz over the atomic bomb has just 4 questions on it, so it shouldn't be that bad for you. You'll also have a couple different terminologies that you'll need to know for the unit test as well as for that vocabulary quiz at the end of the unit. So let's get into everything that you need to know to pass all those quizzes and get out of that Module 9 test with a passing grade. So the first thing that we want to really kind of look at is the reasons behind the dropping of the atomic bomb. And all of this deals with America's push across the Pacific. And one of the things that we had learned as we started to push across the Pacific in our island hopping strategy in World War II against Japan was that Japan was refusing to surrender. Things were getting worse and worse. We were firebombing their cities. Tokyo was nearly demolished. We were capturing island after island. But the closer we got to their home islands, the more fiercely and to the last person were they fighting. In fact, even their civilian populations was joining the resistance against American forces. And this led many Americans to believe that a land invasion of Japan, although it might be necessary, was going to be incredibly costly. And so by May of 1945, the war in Europe is over, and we're starting to prepare for this land invasion of Japan. However, maybe a land invasion was not going to be necessary. And that was in thanks part to the man you see pictured on the left, and that is Albert Einstein. Now, we have to go back in history just a little bit, all the way back to 1939. And Einstein, a famous physicist, he's going to write to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt about the potential to build a nuclear weapon. And as a result of the letter that he writes to FDR, which you see on the right-hand side of the screen there, FDR is going to be convinced, and he's going to go ahead and start a project to build a nuclear weapon, or to try and build a nuclear weapon. And they named this secret project the Manhattan Project, and you're going to need to know that. And so, although Einstein comes up with the idea, they actually put a few other people in charge of this. And the guy that is put in charge of this is the man pictured there on the cover of Time magazine. His name is Robert Oppenheimer. And he's a brilliant physicist, and he works with many other people between 1942 to 1945 in a series of secret labs across the United States. I mean, they're all over the place. There's 100,000 people that are working on this, and they spend nearly $2 billion to create the atomic bomb. And some of the different places, for instance, in Chicago, a guy named Enrico Fermi develops this idea of the nuclear reaction. And there's a nuclear plant in Hanford, Washington. Helps to develop and enrich the plutonium. In places like Oak Ridge, Tennessee, they actually start to construct the bomb and figure out how to do nuclear fusion. And then finally, at the main site, which is a place called Los Alamos, which is out in New Mexico, and that's a place you need to know. That's the national laboratory where they make this all at. The first bomb is successfully tested in the New Mexico desert, and it was called Project Trinity, was the name of that first one in Los Alamos, a place you need to know about. And there's the actual bomb itself, and there's a picture of that thing exploding, which is pretty incredible to watch it. Now, Japan is going to refuse to surrender. And so finally, Truman is going to decide to use this atomic bomb. And the idea is to try and end the war quickly and save American lives. And so first, on August 6th of 1945, we drop a little boy on to Hiroshima on August 6th. It creates ground temperatures of 7,000 degrees, destroys 42,000 buildings. It releases the energy equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT. A hurricane force winds of 980 miles per hour. And by the end of 1945, 140,000 people have died, not just from the effects of the bomb immediately, but from its after effects in total. Japan didn't know what hit them, and they refused to surrender. And in part, they just didn't know what happened. Many people thought it was just another, crazy bad firebombing like the one that had happened on Tokyo. And so we drop our second atomic bomb. It's the only other one that we had. It was called Fat Man. We dropped it on Nagasaki. Hey, now, after this point, they realize, well, something bigger is up, and we threatened to not only bomb those cities, but continue to do this until Japan surrendered. And as a result of this, Emperor Hirohito is going to agree to surrender, and the war in the Pacific is over. VJ Day has arrived, in part thanks to those two weapons, Little Boy and Fat Man, dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I just want to show you a couple pictures just to kind of demonstrate the destructive power. All right, this is Hiroshima. You see the top picture? That's what the city looked like before. And then at the bottom, this is what it looks like after. The city is a moonscape. It has destroyed everything. Now, the next two slides are going to be a little graphic, all right? But it's important for us to understand the absolute devastation of what it does. This is the after effects. This is radiation poisoning. And one of the big things about this and about the dropping of the bombs, we drop them on civilian populations. And this leads to these major questions of the morality of using nuclear warfare and using nuclear warfare on citizens and on civilians, not on military targets, in terms of this warfare. And that becomes a huge question as we move forward. But remember, the development of the nuclear bomb and the dropping of it was to end the war quickly. We developed it with the Manhattan Project using Los Alamos as the nuclear laboratory, and it led to these major questions about the morality of the use of nuclear warfare in the future. Well, that's all that we have time for today. Until next time, and as always, have a great day. Bye for now.